Long before becoming the manager for World of T-Shirts,
Oh, no! Help me!
MrBased spent half a decade in prison for running an escort business that supposedly supplied the governor of New York.
How did the governor think he was going to keep this quiet? You had the governor as a client. You would give him freebies because then you have him by the balls, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Ever since, he's been legally walking on thin ice.
I have a backstory and a lore. All you guys have just done internet crap.
From doing crypto rug pulls, harassing women on stream,
You're bad. No, I didn't do it on purpose.
and allegedly being involved in a woman's death.
I had a roommate named Zoltan who was with this chick. He goes, "You want some GHB?" I woke up on the floor with vomit all over me, with Zoltan telling me that the girl was...
But how did we get here? Jason Lubell Itzler was born on February 23, 1967, to a Jewish family in New Jersey. His mom, Ronnie Lubell, was a fashion designer, and his birth father, Leonard Silk, was a businessman. But after she had Jason, Ronnie divorced him and remarried a man named Ron, a big shot attorney who eventually gave Jason his last name. Very little is known about Jason's early life besides the fact that he had an obsession with sex, sending letters to Mad Magazine asking them to publish recordings of teenage girls climaxing, which they obviously didn't do. Jason claimed that this obsession of his started because his mom was, and I quote, "the hottest woman in the world," which motivated him to be surrounded by beautiful women. Obviously, that's a weird comment to make about your mom, but regardless, this obsession eventually turned into ambition, working in the sex industry. Partially, this ambition was influenced by his maternal grandfather, Nathan Lubell, a bookmaker with ties to organized crime, who owned a chain of amusement parks and hat stores. Seeing how entrenched his grandpa was in what he called the action really motivated Jason to become an entrepreneur himself, and soon enough, he found himself working as a cabana boy at the Concord Hotel, where he befriended Jason Bin, a man who published magazines like The Hamptons and Los Angeles Confidential. Being acquainted with so many millionaires and even billionaires, Jason was enamored with their lifestyle, and while he floated between a couple of different law schools, he decided to start his first ever business, a phone sex company. His business model was quite simple. First, he advertised his services as a free live call, but the catch was after a minute, a $4.98 a minute charge began rolling, meaning that any caller that wasn't an expert at flicker gooning would end up forking over a decent amount of money. To say that this was profitable is a giant understatement. Jason quickly earned himself the title of the phone sex king of South Beach, raking in $600,000 a month, which, as insane as it is by itself, actually turned into even more at $1.5 million per month within 1 year. But easy come and easy go. Jason's spending habits quickly spun out of control, with him buying luxury cars and spending up to $500,000 decorating his one-bedroom apartment. As he financially spun his wheels in the mud, tragedy struck. His mother, whom he was still very close with at the time, passed away from cancer in 1994. 3 years later, his phone sex company fell apart due to an unspecified reason that he simply described as an oversight, which concluded in him filing for bankruptcy and losing everything he had, including perhaps the greatest tragedy of all, losing ownership of the domain pussy.com. Because of the complete failure of his company, he ended up owing $4.5 million at 36% interest to lenders. As a consequence of the debt and the loss of his mother, Jason unfortunately tried to take his own life twice, once with a steak knife, and the other time by taking 150 sleeping pills at once and chasing it down with some scotch. Without his money, things were looking pretty dire. Jason's mother was gone, and he faced a mountain of debt that seemed extremely impossible to climb out of. But in the year 2000, he decided to make his comeback to the sex industry via a camgirl company, and once again, his eyes were bigger than his stomach, as he proceeded to rent out an 8,000 square foot corner building in New York. He went as far as to name his company Soho Models to lure in unsuspecting young women, presenting it as if it were a legitimate modeling business, only to later reveal what they'd actually be doing. Unsurprisingly, this also fell apart, and at one point, Jason recalled finding himself dangling over the side of a building, held by the ankles by a guy named Mikey P. It's uncertain to what extent this little tidbit is true, but given how closely these kinds of businesses are to organized crime, it's probably true. Becoming disillusioned with the industry at the time, Jason decided to clean up his act, go to college, and actually turn his life around. Just kidding. Instead, he decided to pursue another career path: drug trafficking. According to him, he was friends with some Israeli ecstasy dealers at the time, and one day, they tried to recruit him. He was asked to carry somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 pills through customs for a payout of $30,000. And while he was initially hesitant to agree to it, he not only took them up on the offer, but he also convinced them to let him smuggle even more pills. To his surprise, he actually got through customs. And after the job was done successfully, he got paid and kept some 3,000 pills for himself as a bonus for the giant risk he just took. And just like that, Jason was hooked, and he wanted to keep doing it. A couple of years later, he found himself on a plane from Amsterdam to New Jersey with 4,000 tablets of ecstasy on his body, but as soon as he landed, he was caught and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, prison can obviously be a pretty scary place, and Jason was completely terrified of the prospect of going. So he decided that the next best course of action was to pretend he was insane. This involved doing things like spinning around for hours on end, and while that did pale in comparison to what other fakers were doing,
One guy that got through as a full loony took a toothpick and stuck it all the way in his dick. And, he's like, this is all you have to do, Jason. Do this every day. And keep going to medical and telling him it hurts. And of course, I would never do that. But he got right through. They said he's whack.
Jason successfully got himself sent to a correctional facility for mentally ill people. However, he only stayed there for a month, at which point they figured out he was faking it and sent him to prison in New York, where he proceeded to bounce around through a series of different lockups since people had the tendency to want to kill him after spending a little time with him. I'm not really sure what that's about. He should have done the toothpick thing. As you can probably gather, his time in prison was far from pleasant, and he was especially upset that his grandfather, whom he saw as a gangster, didn't approve of his behavior and cut contact with him during the time he was locked up. But fortunately for him, after 17 months, Jason was released on probation and immediately got to working on his next business idea, New York Confidential, a high-class escort business, but with the twist that Jason would only hire women who had never worked in the sex industry before so that he could provide the ideal girlfriend experience. At first, it seemed like this idea wouldn't go anywhere. Jason wasn't having immediate success. But then, a girl called Natalia signed up and instantly became the face of the company. He started promoting her using a website called eroticreview.com, where he ensured she got an endless sea of 10 out of 10 reviews. If anyone were to rate her any less, Jason personally contacted them, made them an offer they couldn't refuse, which ranged from getting extra time with Natalia to, allegedly, paying up to $5,000 in cash. This tactic worked very well, and she quickly doubled her per hour rate, which eventually peaked at $2,000 an hour. Not too shabby. Natalia worked upwards of 270 hours in 1 month, or around 60 hours per week, which, in a very strange and dysfunctional way, made Jason fall in love with her. The fact that she was an extremely active prostitute didn't bother him at all. As he saw it, he would only feel hurt if she had sex with someone else for free. Within months, New York Confidential became one of the largest escort agencies in the country, if not the entire world. And Jason Itzler became known as the king of all pimps, going as far as to publicly identify himself as such in restaurants. And through his business, he became closely acquainted with a number of very powerful people who sought his girl's services, even taking out ad spots in mainstream magazines. At its peak, the agency was pulling in around $500,000 a month, with Jason personally pocketing around $3.6 million per year. But of course, there was one little issue with Jason's entire business model. Prostitution is illegal, which forced Jason to operate in a very legally gray manner. For example, he had all of the girls sign custom contracts saying they were only providing time and companionship for their customers, specifically forbidding any sexual activity. But regardless of his clever legal workarounds due to the time he spent at law school, Jason's time as the king of all pimps was not going to last long. Despite still being on parole and even having a curfew, he flashed his barely legal exploits, going as far as recording a reality TV show inside the New York Confidential offices that he pitched to VH1 for $1 million per episode. This footage, which was later supposed to be made into a documentary, has been partially leaked online, and it shows how brazen Jason was, publicly promoting his clearly illegal business. This is like if Al Capone had a TLC show about bootlegging alcohol during Prohibition. The fact he was able to do all of this while on parole is absolutely ridiculous. But most of this brazenness was an act, something Jason needed to put on due to his addiction to public attention, even if it could potentially cost him his freedom. Behind the scenes, he was getting increasingly stressed out, mostly due to having to drive back and forth from New Jersey to New York in order to keep his business running. This stress led to frequent fights between him and Natalia, whom he demanded drive all the way to New Jersey at 3 a.m. just to stay with him overnight, which eventually culminated in her jumping out of a moving car and breaking her heel during one of their arguments. The strain also led to both of them getting into hard drugs. Jason, because he couldn't smoke weed anymore due to court-mandated drug tests, started regularly abusing ketamine, which the test didn't pick up. While the substance didn't affect him too negatively, it did get to Natalia, who during a binge hit her head on a 6-foot-tall statue of an Indian fertility goddess Jason had placed in their room, where she then passed out and had to go to the ER. Between bragging about having been with 700 women and regularly spending tens of thousands of dollars on completely useless luxury trinkets to the point where he could barely walk in his own apartment, it was very clear that just like it did when he ran his phone sex business, his eccentricities were getting to be too much. At this point in time, Natalia was also being pushed out of the business by another girl named Mona, who just a few months prior put Jason in house arrest by accusing him of being a domestic abuser. It's unknown to what extent these accusations are true, but it is worth noting that there's not one, but 2 records of Jason being arrested for beating up his girlfriends around this time. In any case, the betrayal was too much for her to bear, and she left, as Jason became increasingly deranged, saying things like, "I'm bulletproof, rich people don't go to jail." But Jason's time in the sun was quickly coming to an abrupt end. In late 2004, an altercation broke out between one of Jason's girls and one of his bodyguards, which ended in the man being pepper sprayed and writhing on the floor while she locked herself in one of the rooms and called the cops. While the initial police visit went without any issue, cops began showing up to Jason's property almost every day after that, looking for something they could get him on. It went on for about 2 months until, in January 2005, his property was raided by the police and he was wheeled off to prison. Apparently, the justification for the raid presented itself a few days prior, when 7 of his girls were picked up by the police during another raid, and I'm assuming that during interrogation, the girls tipped the cops off about Jason's shady dealings. He was then formally charged with drug possession, promoting prostitution, money laundering, falsifying business records, stalking, and breaking parole. He was then sent back to prison in New Jersey while awaiting trial. His bail was set at $250,000, with the express condition that the money could not have come from his escort business, meaning Jason really had no chance of getting out. Now, at first, Jason was confident he would actually beat the charges without issue, since he was being defended by a star-studded defense attorney, Paul Berggren. The only problem was, Paul Berggren was himself under federal investigation for allegedly taking part in the murder of an undercover FBI agent. After a few months in jail, it began setting in that he wasn't going to walk as easily as he initially thought. With his wealth confiscated, he didn't have a penny to his name and couldn't even afford lawyer fees, at which point he asked the judge to represent himself, which the judge denied. But he clearly hadn't lost all hope, as in late May of 2006, he called into the Opie and Anthony radio show from inside, where he claimed he would be released in 4 months and then go right back to what he was doing.
Where I'm going to have girls 10 times prettier than I had before, and I had Ford models working for me before, and I'm going to have gentlemen much richer, classier, and more famous than I ever had before, and I had many billionaires before.
How do you not love?
He also advertised his personal website, where he told them they could find his documentary, but since then the website has stopped existing, and archives of it don't go back far enough to see what he was actually talking about. Nowadays, the domain is actually used by Jason's detractors to warn people about him. In the end, after spending 1.5 years in custody, he pled guilty to money laundering, attempting to promote prostitution, and admitted that he ran an escort service worth millions. He also forfeited ownership of everything he had purchased with his ill-gotten gains. In the end, he served 30 months in jail since the moment he'd been arrested in January 2005 and was sent to Rikers Island. Now, despite his reputation as one of the most violent prisons in America, Jason challenges this notion, saying that jail was a lot worse, adding that he became something of a minor celebrity among the inmates due to his status as the world's most famous pimp. During his time away, Jason's lawyer, Paul, took over the business, getting as much as $5,000 a week from the escorts, only to also get arrested on the same exact charges as Jason in 2007. Ironically, right as he was released, the then governor of the state of New York, who had been largely responsible for putting Jason behind bars in the first place, was himself caught using an escort service to send him a prostitute. Seeing this scandal as an opportunity, Jason butted into the public discourse, claiming that he had personally trained one of the girls the governor had solicited. This sparked a frenzy of attention, as Jason quickly earned himself a spot on the then extremely popular Howard Stern show. There, Jason presented himself as an expert on the escort business. He commented on the governor's affair.
Isn't it weird to you that our governor would go after a prostitution ring when he himself is into prostitutes?
This guy, it was such a ridiculously overzealous prosecutor, and Basically, if you watch interviews of him over the years and his wife, he's basically talking about, I live up to a higher standard, so should you. So, I mean, he's a hypocrite.
And spoke about his time in prison.
Did you spend time in a county jail or did you go to a prison?
You were in Rikers, right?
Yeah, Rikers, which is really bad and disgusting. I don't know if you guys know or not, but jail is so much worse than prison. Prison is much nicer. And
so
more...
that's the upgrade, going to prison.
And no one beat you up the whole time there?
They loved the reason I was in there, thank God.
I
They used to grab me all the time and be like, you know what we'd do to you if you weren't the king of all pimps? You know how we'd take your stuff and beat you up?
Oh, really?
And while he did it, he quite convincingly painted himself as a kind of charismatic, entrepreneurial-minded businessman instead of the exploitative, slightly insane pimp that he truly was. In August, he was invited to The View, where his reception wasn't quite as welcoming as Howard Stern's, with the four hosts repeatedly berating him for the derisive comments he made toward the women he worked with. But despite the bad press, Jason was free and he was on kind of a victory lap, while his lawyer, Paul, had just pled guilty to conspiracy to promote prostitution and was sentenced to 3 years probation and a $50,000 fine. A while later, Natalia, now going by Natalie, got time served, meaning the months that she spent in jail were considered sufficient punishment for her work, allowing her to move back to Montreal, where she eventually published a relatively successful book about her time as New York's #1 escort. All in all, things were looking up, and Jason slowly but surely got back on the horse as an escort mogul, although he quickly hit another obstacle in late 2011 when he got caught providing a prostitute to a customer for 3 days at the Trump International Hotel, along with just short of $5,000 worth of cocaine on the side. While the recipient of these services was never specified, Jason claimed that it was extremely famous country musician Billy Ray Cyrus, adding that the girl he had provided was not an escort, but instead a babysitter. According to Jason's side of the story, he saved Billy Ray Cyrus's life by calling the authorities when Billy was suffering from an overdose. Despite how little proof there was about this story, the inflammatory and dubious nature of it was very much intentional. It was in Jason's best interest to make it as big of an event as possible to distract the public from another controversy that was rearing its head at the time. You see, whenever Jason wasn't pushing drugs or pimping girls, he was partying. In one of these instances, he went to Florida, where he met a girl named Julia Sumnicht, a friend of an associate of his named Zoltan. She eventually left Jason's apartment and went to her place, took a few selfies where she seemed to be very much out of it, and the very next day, on the 15th of March 2010, she was found dead in her bed by her roommate. Jason and Zoltan had a falling out a few months later, and the case never turned into much, but as the police backed off from it, the family hired private investigators to find out who was responsible for her death. According to them, Julia and Zoltan first went to a nightclub, then went to Jason's apartment, where they stayed for about 2 hours and then left. The thing is, though she was described as seemingly drunk, a toxicology report showed she didn't have enough alcohol in her to actually be drunk. Instead, the real culprit of her altered state in this case was GHB, the date rape drug, which she had so much of that it actually caused her to die. The only time she could have actually ingested the GHB was when she was at Jason's apartment. When asked, Jason admitted that he did have the drug there, but he diverted the accusation by claiming that he himself had almost died from overusing it, implying that it was being used recreationally by all parties. At the time, he was still in custody for the previously mentioned Billy Ray Cyrus incident, and unfortunately, the PIs didn't find enough evidence to convict him of anything. While Jason was still on trial, he continued to be as intentionally disruptive to the proceedings as he possibly could, as he believed that it would make his story all the more interesting if someone were to make a biopic of him. To put it generously, his trial was a chaotic circus. He fired his state-appointed lawyer and instead hired Mr. Heller, a big-shot defense lawyer, and he then rejected a very generous plea deal because, in his words, the king of all pimps shouldn't settle for a 5 to 10 year timeout in jail. In the opinion of the district attorney, Jason was just doing this to stay in the spotlight longer, and indeed, he did manage to secure the attention of a studio called Polsky Films that offered him a big deal, but nothing ever came of it. As time went on, despite how much he dragged his feet during court proceedings, the time came to actually finalize them, at which point he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. His 4 years on the inside were pretty uneventful, and the 4 years that came after his release in 2016 followed suit, with Jason mostly maintaining a low profile. However, it seems that all of his pretending to be insane from years prior was finally catching up to him, as he had become a lot stranger. For a time after his release, he took up sun gazing, which is literally staring at the sun for hours on end, supposedly to show everyone how the sun isn't actually harmful, although Jason himself eventually acknowledged that this wasn't super successful of an endeavor. During one of these sun gazing sessions, he was approached by the crew of 1 Minute Talk Show, where, after promoting the benefits of staring at the sun,
and like everyone thinks that
it makes you blind. It doesn't make you blind. It doesn't even hurt. Like, I teach people how to do it in 5 minutes. Am I smiling?
He once again retold the story of his involvement with the former New York governor's prostitution controversy, of course, rewriting it to make it seem like he was much more involved than he actually was. The clips of Jason got a lot of views online, and while he read through the comments, he noticed a lot of people were calling him based. Liking the word, he took up the name of MrBased due to how similar it sounded to Mr. Beast, and because there are a lot of YouTubers who make content out of interviewing random people on the street, Jason started popping up on a lot of different YouTube videos, sharing aspects of his life and his views on spirituality.
And after that, I had like 250 out-of-body experiences in 1 year in college. And I became so spiritual.
While most of the people who came up to him had fairly small audiences, all of them collectively helped to get his name out there and build up curiosity online for who Jason was. Meanwhile, he was also trying to set the world record for the most time spent staring at the sun. What an ambitious, entrepreneurial mindset to have. And in 2023, Jason was randomly approached by an IRL streamer called OneSonic, who did a short interview with him. And it's at this point that Jason noticed something new. Unlike in the 2000s, when he had to beg for the attention of TV producers and radio hosts, the people interviewing him now were kids with smartphones and computers, broadcasting their content by themselves online. Suddenly, it came to him that instead of having to constantly put on an act so that other people came over and put cameras on him, he could just do it himself. All he had to do was learn how to. And after a few weeks of bothering OneSonic to essentially show him the ropes, the two reconnected and streamed together, although it didn't go so well.
Bro, you got the most fucking people watching you I've ever seen. You got the second most donations I ever got, and you're crying like a bitch that I'm hurting you. Turn this off. Turn this stream off. You're in my house. I don't want you filming. Turn this off. Right now. Turn it off. Turn it off right now. Off.
During these crash outs, Jason would occasionally stop to tell Sonic that he was just kidding, but eventually, this became a very uncomfortable circumstance for Sonic. Thus began Jason's career as an IRL streamer. For the first 3 months, he averaged 500 viewers, an amount which, while not high enough to make any super real money, was more than enough for him to get harassed out of any establishment he walked into. And just as he was about to give up, he heard that streamers on Kick could make up to $85 an hour if they got good viewership. And after around 1 month, he was banned, prompting him to switch over to YouTube, where he would end up staying for the foreseeable future, which eventually led him to a guy called Ed Basemaster, a YouTuber with over 2 million subscribers. As the two became friends, many networking doors suddenly swung open for Jason, none of which being nearly as fateful as when Ed called him one night and told him that none other than World of T-Shirts Joshua Block was making his way around town and was about to pass his building, suggesting that Jason should show up and meet him. Jason had officially heard the call, and their legendary first meeting would take place.
Hey, my name is MrBased. I'm the world's greatest streamer. Why is this group walking past me?
Let's go.
Who are you guys?
Scram, bitch.
Who are you guys?
Scram.
Who are you?
Scram, bitch.
Who are you?
I'll sue your ass. Scram.
No. Who are you? Who are you? I just want to know who you guys are.
Although the meeting went pretty poorly, there was no denying the entertainment value. And when Michael Quinn, Josh's then manager, saw the interaction, he decided to play peacemaker in much the same way he previously had when he had manufactured the beef between Josh and Daniel Larson. The two of them would eventually become best buddies, but for now, he was still doing his own thing. And just a few days after meeting Josh, he met up with a new character called Carl, also known as Carldo or Carl 3. They went to a bar together, where they were promptly kicked out due to trolls calling the place up. When they went to a pizza place, the same thing happened, and so out of frustration, they eventually just went back to Jason's apartment, where Carl conducted a short interview. During the interview, Jason admits to personally meeting Jeffrey Epstein, implying that he had a weirdly high opinion of him, describing him as tall, handsome, and swaggy. Epstein apparently spent $30,000 to $40,000 a night on girls from New York Confidential, during which he didn't even ask them for sex. All he wanted was for them to party and do blow with him.
I don't know anything about like people being recorded, like celebrities, this and that. The girls always told me everything. I never heard any big name. Maybe they told him here's extra money, don't tell Jason.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
Jeffrey was so popular with Jason's girls that they would fight for the appointments, as it allowed them to meet a bunch of powerful men. Despite the cordial relations Jason and Carl had at the start, things quickly turned sour. About a month after the first meeting, the two had a spat on stream, during which they argued over who was a bigger piece of shit. Jason argued Carl was a sociopath, while Carl called Jason a manipulator who pretended to be a hippie. Jason insisted the only reason he was calling him was to wish Carl the best and ask him to never approach him again.
See you. I hope I never see you again.
Okay, but I didn't call you a narcissist. You just made that up.
You call me every word in the book.
I call you a sociopath. Slept with more guys, more girls than anyone. I slept with more girls, obviously, than anyone you've known in your whole life.
Despite supposedly not wanting to associate with Carl anymore, the two still talk to each other, albeit it's not very friendly. Around this time, Jason was streaming to his 3,500 followers, when a user called Starbucks Nazi sent a text-to-speech message containing the N-word with the hard R 40 times in a row, which led to a suspension. And after that, one Sonic came back into the picture. Following their introduction in 2023, the two alternated between being acquaintances and then being openly hostile toward each other. They started occasionally streaming together sometime in 2024, following Jason's glow up as a content creator, with Jason going as far as to buy Sonic a hat from Balenciaga. This was a bit tone deaf since it happened around the time Balenciaga had children posing in sexualized ways in their advertisements, so some people weren't too happy about them getting the hat. But regardless, all of that aside, the two were such good friends during this time they were even getting high together. One time, Jason gave Sonic an unspecified drug at his apartment, only to then kick him out and send him back home. It's a miracle the journey didn't end with someone discovering his body the next day in a ditch. And with that in mind, it really comes as no surprise that they had another falling out. At some point, the two of them had a fight after Jason called Sonic a retard in a joking manner. He took it pretty personally and stormed out of the apartment, grunting and huffing in a way pretty similar to that carrot-eating pufferfish. You know the one. Oh, he's so cute. Look at him. Jason then talks to him through the window to talk him down before handing him a beer.
Hold on.
You want a beer, Sonic?
Yeah, give me a motherfucking beer.
No, but you stream outside like your anger that you're not in here. We stream inside. People love this shit. It's content, all right? Tell me when you need another beer.
About a month later, all that bad blood culminated in a very weird interaction outside of Jason's apartment where, after a brief argument between Sonic and some girl, Jason comes out of the building to see what the ruckus is about. And it turns into a very awkward argument.
What the hell is going on out here? Who's making all this noise?
He's a real ass nigga from downtown Manhattan, so shut the fuck up!
I'm so tough compared to you. You cannot murder me. Stop talking shit. Stop talking shit to me. Okay? I want you to stop fucking talking shit. All right?
But the fight did not end there, as after Jason let Sonic go, Sonic went in for seconds.
Everything is from you!
Go on my fucking street.
I'm going home. I just crossed the line.
Obviously, this incident severely damaged the relationship between the two, as they pretty much stopped streaming together for the next half a year, during which Jason was openly hostile towards Sonic, leading to this little gem.
We will go press Sonic without hurting Sonic or touching Sonic. I will track that bitch down, and using only my mouth, I will fuck Sonic.
But just as the drama boiled over, Jason got into another beef with a guy named Waxiest, who found out about the ongoing investigation into Julia Sumnick's death. The two had a big argument out on the street, as Waxiest expressed he was not comfortable with the idea of Jason hanging around women, given his history of allegations. Jason, meanwhile, accused him of slander and acted like he had no idea what he was talking about, before threatening to sue him.
Call me a murderer again.
I'm going out.
Call me a murderer again.
Break me then.
Call me a murderer
Break
again.
me then.
Call me a murderer
Break
again.
me then.
Come on, so I can
Do
sue
something.
you.
Do something, you twig.
The convo becomes completely unhinged from this point on, as Jason goes back and forth between threatening to beat Waxiest up and then inviting him to his apartment for a drink within a span of 3 seconds.
I love you, bro. You're a good guy.
Hey.
You're a good guy.
Alrighty.
Come back to my house. Let me make you a drink.
Undecided whether he wanted to get away from Waxiest or continue to badger him, Jason decides to sprint, but then turns around and starts throwing bananas at him. Literal bananas. He saw bananas on the street and he started throwing them. At some point, Jason gives up on the whole pacifist charade, and after Waxiest continues to ask probing questions, this happens.
What's going on, dude? Why you running? Oh, he snapped my phone. Good thing I got a phone case on. That's assault. That's fucking... I'll report you for that right there. That's on his stream.
I could tell him you call me a murderer.
Eventually, Jason just walks off and leaves the cameraman, the aforementioned Carl, to chat with Waxiest, which seemed to make the situation die down for the time being. After this incident, Jason got really angry with Carl and ended his friendship with him, supposedly because he was a dirty, super racist sociopath, his words not mine. Later on in the same month, a guy named Ronald, who claimed to be Sonic's boyfriend, walked up to Jason's door and started knocking violently, demanding that he open it. While it's hard to make out a lot of this interaction, Jason came away from the situation believing that this random guy had something to do with Carl, who came to visit the apartment shortly after the interaction. The two then had a very tense exchange, during which Jason goes for the old reliable and slaps his phone out of his hand.
Do you know that guy?
Mr. Mace, come on.
No.
What are you doing?
Look me in the eyes.
What are you doing?
Do you know that guy?
Oh, what are you doing?
Carl, do you know this guy?
It's hard to know how much Carl knows, and honestly, it's pretty uncertain how much of these altercations are real and how much of them are exaggerated for dramatic effects to get more stream viewers, but we're kind of getting in the weeds here. So far, we've already established that Jason is willing to do a lot of pretty nasty things for the sake of attention or money. And if true, he definitely wouldn't be the only content creator who fakes drama and goes out of his way to look for conflict, knowing that it's going to boost his viewership and get people engaged. Although his strategy did prove successful at getting new viewers, is it really worth it if it means finding yourself awake in the middle of the night, throwing bananas at people you barely know in the hopes it gets you like 50 extra people to watch your stream? By the looks of it, MrBased was well on his way to being yet another struggling IRL streamer, making a fool out of himself online for scraps of engagement. But things would soon change, although I wouldn't say that change was for the better. A while after they first met, Jason finally wiggled himself into Joshua Block's orbit. Actively streaming with him, his fans multiplied, demanding he spend as much time with Josh as possible, and Jason gladly obliged. As the two of them started hanging out regularly, spending hours streaming in Jason's bizarre man cave and going out for drinks, MrBased slowly but surely edged out Josh's former manager. It's not really surprising since MrBased actually put in effort to be entertaining and keep things interesting when he was streaming with Josh, while the most that Michael Quinn did was feed off of Josh's fame, only to do nothing with it. And in June of 2024, while Jason streamed, Carl sent a text-to-speech message saying that he would sexually assault Josh, to which Josh replied by threatening to kill whoever said that, earning MrBased a 6-day ban on Kick. Despite being on seemingly worse terms than ever, Jason had a few fellow streamers over at his house, and one of them was Carl. I don't know why they made up so quickly given Carl indirectly got him banned off of Kick by triggering Josh to make death threats on stream, but regardless, their friendship was bound for the floor, as Carl made the mistake of bringing his girlfriend with him, and Jason simply couldn't stop himself from sexually harassing her whenever they got close.
And stick it so deep in her mouth that like she nearly comes.
I felt it.
Oh my god.
What the fuck?
No one in the room seemed that bothered, with the cameraman mentioning how he should probably stop to avoid getting canceled.
Hold up, Base. I gotta protect you here. You're about to be Mr. Canceled if you don't watch yourself, bro.
But that did not stop Jason as he continued to grope this girl until he took it just a few steps too far.
You put your finger up my ass crack.
I know, but that doesn't count.
I guess it kind of shows the kind of people he likes to hang out with that no one seems that concerned, as even Carl remains in pretty good humor about the whole thing and just tells Jason to stop, which has little to no effect at all. Eventually, Carl goes to leave Jason's apartment, and when Kimberly tries to follow him out, she gets grabbed and pulled back in by Jason. Even stranger is the fact that it turned out Jason's objective was to convince Kimberly to have sex with another guy at the party, not him.
Quickly, let this motherfucker get laid, like, correctly.
Yeah, come with me and Carl.
Come.
Let me lend you to my bedroom quickly. Let this motherfucker get laid, like, correctly, because you know how to fuck. Let this motherfucker get laid correctly. Carl won't care.
Just a few hours later, when he was being pressed about it, Jason spoke as if he had no idea about anything that happened at the streamer party, saying he would never unconsensually touch a girl, let alone Carl's girlfriend, who in his estimation was unattractive. The excuse didn't really hold up though, as it seems someone called the police and informed Kick of what was going on, causing MrBased to get banned and lose his partnership with the website. It's at this point that Jason goes completely insane, threatening to kill Carl because of the whole situation and accusing him of setting him up.
You wanna touch grass?
Let's find Carl and I'm gonna kill him. Literally, I'm gonna kill him.
You ain't killing shit.
No, not literally kill
Daddy,
him, but
daddy,
like
daddy.
in that game.
They did meet up again, and Jason jumps on Carl and throws down with him. After that's over, he has a meltdown at Kimberly, demanding that she write Kick an email claiming she was personally responsible for him being kicked out of their partnership program, despite her insistence that she hadn't said anything to anyone.
I didn't do anything to you.
I did.
Everyone said you took my KCIP.
I didn't
How
do
you can
anything.
tell them.
I didn't do anything.
Tell them right now.
I didn't do anything.
Did I do anything to you?
No, you didn't. I said it multiple times that you
We
didn't
both
do
lost our
anything.
KCIP because of you.
I didn't do anything though.
Tell them.
Whatever clout Jason had managed to build up for himself via his streams with Josh Block was now pretty useless, since without the ability to stream on Kick and having lost his partnership, he would now have to start over from scratch on another platform. Realizing what he'd just done, Jason went into full damage control mode. His justification for harassing Kimberly was that he was trying to get her to reveal herself as a cheater so that Carl left her.
And then when I tickled her on her ribs, he goes, "Oh, you put your thumb in my ass." Like,
What a selfless guy. Additionally, he claimed that he never touched her ass and instead was just tickling her ribs, which would still be kind of weird even if it were true. But almost immediately after, his tone changed, and he began calling Carl a cuck, a sicko, and a sociopath for letting him disrespect Kimberly, although he never admits that this was in the form of touching her ass.
he's a gifted performer. I'd even watch him after all this. I just don't want him around me. I could get $500,000 in subs to do something with Carl, and Carl make it not worth it later, trust me. I'm also getting to the point of being afraid of being physical with Carl, you know? I'm trying to cuck Carl. Cuck! I'm cucking Carl, not flirting like I like her. So he'll leave my home because I have no other way to get rid of Carl except flirting or touching or cucking.
If his initial intention was to rewrite the narrative in his favor so that Kick gave him a second chance and unbanned him, he had completely forgotten about it at this point, as it just turned into another incoherent MrBased rant. Afterwards, Jason vowed to never stream with any of the streamer friends again, adding that he would get a restraining order against Carl if only he knew his name and address. As for Kimberly, Jason claimed she was lying about the assault so that she could sue him for his $5 million net worth. It's unknown if there's even an ounce of truth behind the claim of him having that much money, but regardless, Jason was confident he was going to keep making money off of streaming, if not through his own, through Joshua Block. It's interesting how his career path went from pimping and exploiting young women to pimping and exploiting a mentally challenged person. It's almost like you can make out a pattern here. After 6 days, his Kick ban was over, and he immediately fired up another stream, during which he approached this random woman at a food stall. At first, their interaction was pretty normal, and then this happened.
Can I get a kiss for that?
You're bad.
No, I didn't do it on purpose. I was just, I thought you said so. You went,
You guys.
His whole normal dude persona quickly fell apart after that. When feigning ignorance didn't work, he tried to explain that he did it to get 10 subs. He then insisted on trying to get her to go to a bar with him, which she was understandably kind of upset about.
You can't do that to women.
Do you want me to buy you drinks or not?
No, that was weird. You just force kissed me.
Oh, Jesus, I'm the wrong guy to say that to.
No,
They accused me of it the other day.
Yes!
They accused me of putting my thumb up someone's ass.
I don't know what possessed him to admit he was accused of even more, but it's not the worst thing he does here. He eventually turns the camera away as the two have a full-on argument.
Dude, what the f? He just like kissed me on my mouth without my permission.
You told me to kiss you on the cheek and I turned around.
And you turned and you kissed me on my lips on purpose.
You kissed me and I went
You
like
asked
that.
if I could have. Yo, it's weird, and you're smiling about it like you're a creepy person. You turn the camera away because you know it's weird.
Have a good night. You want to trade Instagram?
No, I'll punch you in your face and talk to me.
After asking for her Instagram one more time, he finally turns around to leave, until she makes the mistake of calling him a pervert. And just as he tries to leave again, he throws one last jab.
You're a fucking pervert.
You're like a fucking weird redhead. Chill out. I thought you were joking.
He doesn't change his tune after leaving either, pondering about what could be wrong with that girl for rejecting him so strongly. And with every word, he just dug a deeper hole.
She's like, just get away from me. I mean, come on. I'm like, she's fucking fat and ugly with weird red hair, and she's like my age. Like, I wouldn't. I was doing it for chat.
To no one's surprise, he got suspended from Kick the same day. What does come as a bit of a surprise is that, once again, a few days later, his account was unbanned, and he continued to milk his connection with Josh Block, which is really all he could do at this point since everyone else had the wits about them to cut off contact and not associate. In early July, Josh was on a stream getting flooded with text-to-speech messages, leading to a much-expected breakdown.
I'll ruin you! I'm phoning the police! I'm suing you! Shut up!
As you can see, he was already quite upset at this point, but it wasn't until a call-in that he completely crashed out.
MrBased, how does it feel to exploit a young, disabled person like Josh for abuse?
Disabled!
Just go to rehab, just go to rehab, Josh, go to rehab,
Disabled!
Josh, go to rehab, Josh, go to rehab, Josh, go to rehab, Josh, go to rehab,
Disabled! I'm gonna fucking ruin you!
This little interaction gave Josh an addiction to saying the N-word.
You're in there.
Clearly, he isn't really someone who can exercise judgment to the best of his ability, and Jason was capitalizing on that as much as possible, ensuring that there was always a camera on him to capture him responding to the TTS dono messages. A while later, an extremely drunk Josh decided to go out for a haircut, during which he fell backward on the street as he wasn't able to even walk properly at this point. At some point during the stream, Josh even began freaking out in public, screaming the words "make it stop" at seemingly no one, prompting Jason to ask if he was hallucinating. As he was carried back into the apartment by a couple of police officers, Jason said that he was going to turn the stream off, supposedly because he didn't want to exploit Josh while he was vulnerable. Gee, I really wonder what all of the recording him nearly passing out on the sidewalk was about.
What's happening? Jesus, Josh, what's going on? It is.
Stop!
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, Josh, you know you're not drinking, so whatever it is going to wear off.
This moment sparked a lot of controversy and blew up on YouTube, bringing even more negative attention to both Josh and Jason. And as a result, Josh's grandpa barred him from hanging out with MrBased, even threatening to kick Josh out of the house if he kept associating with him.
But I'm gonna get you a house tomorrow. Can I get you an apartment tomorrow in the city?
You could, but no. You're a bad influence on Josh. That's what's very fun. No.
Josh, you all right?
No streaming, okay? Make sure that your live stream is off.
All right, we're gonna hang out. Our next time we hang out, it's no live stream. I promise you. I promise you. I love you, Josh. You sound good. Swear to God, I will never lie to you.
Grandfather finds out again, he's gonna kick me out of the house.
I want your grandfather to love me, and I want to get you an apartment. I'll keep the stream off.
Turn off your live, okay?
You got it. I'll see you tomorrow.
Criticism was coming in from all sides, including his own fans, who would send in paid messages to tell him he was exploiting a mentally unstable autistic guy. He had this response.
This is just what I do. I'm not finding someone and exploiting them or whatever. I'm trying to make money at live streaming. I'm trying to find content anyway.
It's pretty funny how his denial is actually an admission of exactly the thing he's being accused of. And as public opinion rapidly soured on MrBased, people once again started digging up his past, bringing up the issue of Julia Sumnicked on his stream. This time, he didn't just exculpate himself by claiming he drank the same stuff as she did, but he also added that Zoltan only pretended to drink it, suggesting that if someone had killed her, it was Zoltan.
I never even met her, and he came upstairs to the apartment at midnight one night. I was sleeping in my bed. He knocks on my door. Jason, I want to introduce you to someone. He shows off a hot chick to me. We hang out for a while. He goes, you want some GHB? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, rah, tastes like shit. And then he goes and pretends to sip some because I know him. He gives it to the girl. She sniffs it. She goes, ah. And that was it. And then I got really sick from the GHB a couple minutes later, 10 minutes later. I don't know how long. And I'm like, I got to go to bed. I was embarrassed. I was going to throw up in front of him. And that was it. Then I don't remember anything, and I woke up on the floor with vomit all over me, with Zoltan telling me that the girl was dead, and what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? That's all. Do I know for a fact Zoltan killed this chick? No, but if he didn't kill her, who did? Of course he killed her.
Fortunately for him, the people who continued to watch his stream didn't care about how terrible of a person he potentially was. They were just there for the content. And Jason was more than willing to do whatever he could to keep that content coming. So much so that around this time, he got Josh to move out of his grandpa's apartment.
I'm moving out.
Well, but you don't know when you're moving out and stuff.
Yeah.
Look.
It's our secret.
We got a secret that you guys will never figure out, right?
Yeah.
Except you just spilled the beans a little bit.
His grandparents were under the impression that he was just gonna go to Puerto Rico for 5 days, unaware that Jason was taking him to a $136 a night hotel where they dedicate their time to pushing out as much streaming as possible. In mid-August, Josh got a nasty rash on his face, prompting Jason to take him to a doctor's appointment. Naturally, he pulled out a camera and started recording, showing Josh's cold sores to the public. Immediately after, while they were in the doctor's waiting room, he lit a cigarette and handed it to Josh, who's not a smoker, meaning every puff he took sent him into a coughing fit. Luckily for Josh, they they somehow didn't get kicked out of the hospital, and the doctor eventually walked into the room to check on him, explaining that the rashes looked like monkeypox. Jason's response was pretty interesting.
Rashes on my arm and my neck. I don't know if what it is. It was itching right before I left for Punta Cana.
We're hoping it's psoriasis.
Or eczema.
Eczema, that was the word.
It looks like possible monkeypox I want to test for.
Are you sick? Monkeypox? Isn't that scary?
I just want to.
Oh yeah, test for it. Holy. Do you know? Have you heard of monkeypox?
When Josh tried to ask what his options are, Jason butted in
What
again.
would be the...
No, you
Can you stop taping me?
Yeah, of course, of course.
you.
of
What
course.
would be the...
Yeah, do you not turn this off at the 1 minute point? Thank you.
Yeah. What would be the treatment if it's monkeypox?
At the 1 minute.
Well, you're not.
How long? Where did you go?
It has to be.
No, we're turning off. But where did you go to medical school? We're just curious. We have OCD.
Long Island University.
I love that
Right,
school.
okay.
God bless you.
Right there.
I'm 57. I graduated in 85.
The whole thing was almost surreal in how comically evil Jason came across, and some people thought it had to be staged, although there's no proof that that's the case. Luckily, the monkeypox test came back negative, and like the content goblin he is, Jason made sure to record that as well.
And then when we told her that you went on vacation and what happened to your psoriasis and everything, right?
Yeah.
Then what'd she say? Thank God you told me?
Yeah.
Because she thought you had the most contagious disease in the world?
Yeah.
As insane as Jason's situation with Josh is on its own, there's a character of the story I've been deliberately omitting. So let's go back a little bit to meet a guy called Alex Novell.
I've done a documentary on Josh on my YouTube channel. You guys can check that out. It's pretty cool. It's just kind of like a slice of life of Josh's tour. Yeah, happy to be here. MrBased W, great guy.
Alex is a YouTuber known for making in-depth documentaries about weird people. Given he was on Jason's stream, it gave people the impression that he would make a relatively positive documentary about Jason and Josh, since the two seemed to be pretty close at the time. Eventually, Alex came clean and expressed that he believed Jason had indeed killed Julia Sumnicht via overdose and was now pimping out Joshua Block for his own gain. He even shared a call he'd had with him, wherein Jason talks about how he's expecting Josh to turn on him very soon and was looking forward to it, outright saying that his only interest was to leech viewers off of him because the audience thought he was boring whenever he wasn't around Josh.
I can't wait to be done with this kid. Honestly, I know the content is great, but Josh's audience has to see how I'm so much more interesting than him, right? Like, they get that Josh is boring without me now, shouldn't they?
This did not come as much of a shock, since this was just Jason saying what everybody already knew, which is that he was only in it for the content and nothing else. Once this information was released, the LolCow Live podcast had a segment talking about the whole situation. Jason was invited to explain himself, but before he ever had the chance to speak, Alex gave a live interview. He heavily criticized Jason for what he did to Josh, bringing up his history of running an escort agency.
Yeah, MrBased is famous for being like a pimp in New York City. He ran an escort agency in the 2000s. So makes sense he's like pimping this autistic kid now.
More importantly, he brought the Julia Sumnicht story back to light, and he made an extraordinary claim, saying Jason had admitted to him on a call that he'd killed her.
Did not recognize it as a murder or a homicide immediately because they were very busy responding to a bunch of other overdoses in the area.
So you mean to tell me MrBased murdered a woman?
MrBased murdered a woman.
From here, Alex retells the original story of Julia's death with some new additions, such as the claim that Jason was personally responsible for not only buying the GHB, but also for spiking Julia's drink without her knowledge.
He spiked Julia's drink with GHB. They were hanging out for an hour and a half alone in Jason's apartment, and then she died of a GHB overdose.
After that, Alex exposed just how far the exploitation went, revealing that Jason had made as much as $60,000 in a week and a half of streaming with Josh off of donation messages alone, all while paying Josh about $200 a day and about $800 to $900 for the hotel room. When Jason finally gets on stream, he immediately addresses the claim that he admitted to leeching off of Josh, explaining that this call took place when he and Josh were on bad terms, and that this was his way of expressing how hurt he was.
Love Josh Block. Josh Block is cool as shit. it.
Yeah.
We hang out much more often.
What percentage? What are you paying him? What are you paying him? What are you paying?
He also claimed that 50% of all the TTS earnings went directly to Josh, and added that he was a very good influence and supposedly helped him drink less. Perhaps seeing that Jason wasn't addressing a lot of the claims made, or pretending that he'd forgotten that, Keemstar decided to bring Alex back on stream, at which point Jason ran away.
I didn't even know he was joining. I just didn't like that you said he might join, bro.
Well,
I don't know how to hang up.
Hi,
Please hang up on me.
Don't. Oh my God. This is.
Guys, I'm sorry.
Once again, Keemstar truly does his best work whenever he's talking to a guy named Alex. As Alex joined back in, it was pointed out that Jason had thrown his dog while talking to the LolCow Live crew, and I have no idea why this even happened. You can clearly see him flinging his dog off screen for no apparent reason. But after that was out of the way, Alex denied that Jason gave Josh 50% of the donation money, and eventually, Kimberly and Carl got brought on the stream to go over their incident.
So then we went back, and then he just started like grabbing on me and stuff, and like, I don't know, I was just sort of laughing it off as like, just sort of like trying not to make a big deal out of it, and you know, but then it got more and more aggressive, and so he did put his finger in my ass.
With Carl claiming that during their fight, Jason tried to cut him with a key.
Correct, and I didn't go to file a police report because all my information will be public, and he knows people. He threatened me before to hire people to hurt me, and he's just a very dangerous person in my opinion.
Despite how much negative attention had accumulated around Jason at this point, it wasn't enough to stop him from continuing to exploit Josh. Around 2 days after the LolCow livestream, Jason was approached by Alex Novell, who was live, recording him and asking him to admit the truth about Julia, at which point this happened.
Get away from me. Look, call the cops. Look, call the cops. Get off. Call the cops. Call the cops. He's attacking me. Call the cops. Oh, he's attacking me. Somebody help. Somebody help. This guy just attacked me. Attacked me. Somebody help me. Somebody help me.
News of the incident blew up across social media, with accounts like Drama Alert quickly jumping on the story. It soon made its way to traditional media as well, with articles from Sports Skita and the Express Tribune. In the moments after, Jason went completely quiet on social media for several days. Meanwhile, Keemstar went as far as to send people to interview anyone living close by in search of him, sending 5 undercover people to sweep the streets, who apparently located him on the same day. This didn't really pan out though, as he was still at large after the tweet. As for Alex, he was invited back on LolCow Live, where he showed the aftermath of the attack. Similar to Carl, his face had been cut, requiring several stitches. He also explained why he had been screaming so loud, saying he wanted to get everyone's attention. At the time of the recording, he had already filed a police report, and he alleged that while he was doing it, one of Jason's bodyguards called him on the phone and threatened him not to go to the police with it, which every cop in the room apparently heard.
All right.
The cops are looking for him right now. They're trying to find him. If anyone, like if he goes live and anyone knows his location, call the police and tell them his location. They'll go pick him up.
More importantly, he dug up even more info concerning the Julia Sumnicht case, finding the original police report from 2019, which contained testimony from Zoltan. According to him, Jason had oral intercourse with Julia after she took the drug, supposedly because she was on her period, which meant he didn't want to have regular intercourse with her. Again, I have no idea what to make of this besides that this is absolutely insane and horrific if true. Later on, 2 of Keemstar's contacts were invited onto the show, where they revealed Jason wasn't at his home despite having all of the lights on. Keemstar reveals that there were 4 different teams looking for Jason at the same time, all of whom were unsuccessful. Jason, meanwhile, was still avoiding capture, messaging Josh on August 20th that he would jump off the Brooklyn Bridge because Keemstar had made his life unlivable. And probably the funniest part about this entire thing is that Josh just responds saying, "I'm sorry to hear that, maybe we can see each other in another life. Let me know if there's anything I can do." Josh later shared messages that implied Jason had thrown his phone away and someone else had found it. The day after, Keemstar claimed that Jason was planning to leave the country and had even tried to convince Josh to follow after him. But in the end, all of these plans didn't come to fruition, as Jason finally returned to social media and revealed that he had apparently been with Josh the entire time, meaning the DMs were manufactured to get these narratives going online.
I went through a lot the past couple days. I had Keemstar's lynch mobs coming after me, banging on my windows for like 5, 6, 7 hours a night. Josh and I were camped out in my bedroom, chilling out while people were banging on the windows, going crazy.
At some point, the 2 then went to a hotel in New Jersey before separating when Jason reached out to a lawyer, who negotiated for him to surrender himself.
but I am surrendering myself to the police. Just got out of the shower. I got to get over there within minutes. And God bless you all. Wish me luck. I love you. Peace.
He claims that Alex had assaulted him first, and that all Jason did was pull the wire out of his camera. In the end, he kept his word, and was eventually arrested on charges of assault with a weapon, assault to cause harm, and aggressive harassment. He was ordered to be in court the next day for arraignment. On the same day of his arraignment, he was sent back home, firing up yet another stream as soon as he could. And here, he was notably way more unhinged than usual, and that's saying a lot.
Filming everything I do 24/7 until this matter goes away.
Don't talk about Alex.
I'm not going to talk about the case. I'm not going to talk about that guy. I'm not talking about anyone. But I'm going to live stream my life from now until this all goes away. I'm a streamer and people are talking about this and I've got to fucking act like I don't hear what there's. I need to be coached how to deal with this.
He wisely did manage to avoid talking about the ongoing legal case, and afterwards went back to his usual antics, exploiting Josh for every single text-to-speech shekel that he possibly could. But with MrBased back in the public eye, he wanted to rehabilitate his public image after so many accusations, so he invited a YouTuber called Ian Bick over to his house. While there is a little bit of interesting information in the interview, it was ultimately perceived pretty poorly by Ian's fan base, who took major issue with the fact that the Julia story was never even brought up. Probably because Jason wouldn't have agreed to doing the interview if he had to talk about it. And just like every other attempt at rehabilitating his image, the interview did nothing to make people see him as any less of a scumbag. So he just carried on streaming, being that scumbag. During a later stream, Josh was sent into another frenzy by some trolls who were telling him to put the fries in the bag. He immediately flew into a rage upon hearing it, running out on the street, kicking two random bystanders, followed by more disoriented screaming, and eventually climbing up on someone's car and stomping on it. He and Jason later went back to the apartment where Josh's meltdown continued, only being put to a stop when he started hitting Jason's camera. There was really no end in sight when it came to milking him for content. The owner of the car Josh stomped on later came to Reddit to vent about the situation, providing proof of the damage to his car. He also mentioned he had called the police, although the post was later deleted. Unfortunately, this incident was yet another low for World of T-Shirts, where even the old Mayor Flanagan, a self-appointed Joshua defender, had to step in and give people assurance that Josh recognized this was a mistake and had agreed to attend counseling. But unsurprisingly, nothing really changed, and within a few days, Josh was back to his regularly scheduled freakouts. But between all of these embarrassing, insane, and random antics, internet sleuths were trying to dig into what was really going on. Kiwi Farms managed to leak Jason's case summary, revealing he was to appear in court on the 7th. About 3 days later, his YouTube channel was banned for violating terms of service after hackers uploaded a short video referencing P. Diddy, along with a nude picture of Josh. Despite repeatedly begging YouTube to reinstate him, they didn't, so Jason had to make a brand new channel called MrBased Live. Despite how many people realized associating with MrBased was basically willingly walking into a living nightmare, some people still didn't know any better. And one of them was none other than Letty, one of the stars of season 1 of Sam Hyde's reality TV show Fish Tank. In the middle of the stream, Jason suddenly turned aggressive, hurling insults at her and accusing her of being sent on the show for no other reason than to take away from the entertainment value. As the two went at it, Jason brought up an OnlyFans account made in Letty's name, which she claimed had been made by an ex-boyfriend as revenge towards her, whom she supposedly was filing legal action against. The explanation didn't satisfy Jason though, as he proceeded to comment on her photos.
Get a reaction out of me. Why should I appeal to them and say like,
just
oh,
tell
I
them,
shaved just for you. Like, that's none of their business.
Just tell them it's not hairy anymore so they can respect you.
This is just making you look bad.
This young woman.
Just tell them that you shaved it and it's clean now.
No.
It's still hairy and disgusting?
Anonymous sent $15.
Yes,
Letty is just an girl there. Google-born television fans to see our holes.
Josh. If she's gonna date you, tell her she gotta shave her ass.
Someone called the cops. Now send $15.
This was such a blunder that Jason's own fans were siding with Letty and letting Jason know that he was being intensely creepy. Eventually, a viewer donated some money asking for Jason to kick her out of the apartment, prompting her to leave of her own will and start her own stream, where she claimed she was purposely trying to get under his skin since earlier that day, and before they began their stream, he had already brought up her revenge pictures and went on to ask if they were hot or not. This incident with Letty coincided with MrBased fans going on a dono strike, which really stressed him out, as he was making significantly less money than usual already. Meanwhile, on the 1st of November, Alex's documentary on MrBased went up, containing interviews with some of the people he had streamed with. But easily the most important part of the video is the coverage of the Julia case.
The grieving family of a Wisconsin college student who died on spring break last year are working hard on 2 fronts this morning.
Julia Sumnick's family has hired a private investigator to try to find out who was responsible, and the family is also bringing awareness to the dangers of the drug that killed her.
Alex managed to obtain phone calls Jason made to his lawyer from prison, where the two explicitly discussed how they would distract the public away from the case by publicizing the Billy Ray Cyrus story.
You made the post again this morning.
Oh, really? What does it say?
For the girl who they said that you killed.
Oh, shit. Does it make me look bad?
None of the press made it seem like it was you. The family in Wisconsin hired some investigator to look into this, where the investigators in Wisconsin said they believe they have enough to get you on this.
To get me and Zoltan, or just me?
I think the focus was on you. I don't remember if it was both of you or not.
Oh my God, that makes me a little scared. What seemed to get more attention, the the Billy Ray Cyrus story, or me and the Zoltan and the girl story?
In New York, the Zoltan story got nothing.
Oh, got no attention?
Yeah. No, I mean, Gawker didn't pick it up. No one else picked it up.
Gotcha. And did my other story, the Billy Ray Cyrus, get a lot of attention?
Yeah.
To deflect the attention from that, am I a great guy? Yeah, I know I am.
The worst part is that this strategy actually succeeded, and Jason got off the hook. Further damning Jason is the fact that he told Alex that Julia's mother would confirm he had nothing to do with Julia's death, only for Alex to contact her and discover that she felt exactly the opposite. Julia's mom blamed all of it on Jason, saying he was an evil man who should be behind bars. But ultimately, it wasn't Jason's efforts to incriminate Zoltan, but instead the incompetence of the police's handling of the case that got him off the hook. According to private investigators that were looking into it, there was a water bottle belonging to Julia that wasn't taken as evidence, but if it had been, it would have given the cops enough evidence to put Jason away for good. But unfortunately, they never bagged it.
Yo, what's going on? Don't record me right now.
Okay.
You promise?
Yeah, I'm not recording you.
I'm the one who had to connect to get the GHB, and we got it from this fucking gorgeous DJ. Her name was Lisa Kensington, right? So I bought it from DJ Lisa Kensington, and remember, I almost died from this shit.
Yeah.
Getting her to drink that shit or to sneak that shit on her, that's not killing her. That's not intent to kill. Is it called manslaughter? The one thing I never revealed that I just told you is that I had to connect to get it.
Alex also shows the FOIA of the court proceedings containing Zoltan's full testimony, where he claimed that by the time Zoltan and Julia got to Jason's apartment, he was already taking GHB, got them to do it, and then while Zoltan was passed out, Jason had oral intercourse with Julia, as had been previously stated. With this much new evidence being put on display, the documentary received plenty of acclaim. However, it didn't have much of an effect on MrBased's career. After all, he had built an audience off of being a complete degenerate. Why would it really affect him in any serious manner? In mid-November of 2024, Jason then pled not guilty to all charges of assaulting Alex except for one, causing physical injury, which got him time served and a small fine. But if every single crime committed so far wasn't enough, within weeks of being released, Jason went on stream with Josh to announce the Josh Block coin, claiming that Josh would never drink alcohol again if the coin got valued at $1. The person running the coin operation was Carl, who held all of the coins prior to their release, and if it wasn't clear to you yet, this is what's called a rug pull. They launched it on stream, whispering to each other about how they would dump it as soon as it went up. While some people were goofy enough to put their money in it, almost everyone knew from the get-go that the coin was a total scam. The funniest part of it is that Jason was the one who ended up getting scammed, as when the coin was launched, a major coin holder, who Jason believed to be their friend, Eric, sold about $70,000 worth of it, absolutely tanking it before they could do anything. He gets so irate over this that he started screaming at everyone in the room, including Josh. But, perhaps clinging to the hope that somehow it would still get pulled off, he went on promoting it, but to no avail.
We're not even doing anything. We're trying to figure out how to launch a coin.
Get out!
Stop it, Josh.
I want them to leave.
They're not in my house. Stop it.
Yet they're outside.
Yeah. Who cares?
Unfortunately, there really isn't a satisfying end to MrBased's story. He didn't get hauled off to prison, and he didn't lose his grip on Josh Block's online presence, as he continues to regularly stream with him and make tons of money off of him every week. And there's seemingly nothing anyone can do to stop him, at least for the time being. You never know when he's going to start up another quote-unquote business that relies entirely on illegal activity and finds himself back at Rikers Island. But more importantly than Jason's suffering, we can hope that Josh Block is at least getting paid, since he's the one people really want to see. Until next time, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.